Senator Collins.
Thank you.
Far from least.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Brennan, I want to follow up on the point that Senator Coates just raised with you, because if you looked at a map back in 2001, you would see that al-Qaeda was mainly in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And if you look at a map today, you would see al-Qaeda in all sorts of countries. That's not to say that there weren't cells in other countries back in 2001, but it raises a question in my mind of whether, even though we've been successful in taking out some of the core of al-Qaeda and some high-level leaders, whether our strategy is working. If the cancer of al-Qaeda is metastasizing, do we need a new treatment?
What we've tried to do, Senator, over the past decade and longer is to be able to treat this real cancer in a number of ways. Sometimes it takes lethal force. Sometimes it takes military might. Sometimes it takes working with our partners in a variety of ways. Sometimes it takes addressing some of the infrastructural, institutional, and other deficiencies that exist in these countries that al-Qaeda takes advantage of. If you look at the geographic map, in the area from South Asia over through the Middle East to North Africa, there has been tremendous political turbulence in that area over the past decade, and particularly over the past couple of years. There are a lot of spaces, ungoverned spaces that al-Qaeda has taken advantage of. We've been able to make some significant progress in certain areas. Somalia is, in fact, a good example of a place where we've worked with neighboring countries. We've worked with the local government. We've worked with AMISOM, a multilateral element within Africa, to try to suppress the efforts of al-Shabaab and al-Qaeda in East Africa. Good progress has been made there because it has to be comprehensive. It's not just a kinetic solution to this by any means. Now as we look at the Sahel and the area in Mali and other areas, these are tremendous expanses of territory where al-Qaeda can put down roots beyond the reach of local governments. And so they've been able to put down roots, and it's been unattended because of the difficulties that these countries have, even feeding their people, much less putting in place a system of laws and the intelligence and security capability. So is it a different strategy? It has to be a comprehensive one. But al-Qaeda and this, the forces of Islamic extremists that have really corrupted and perverted Islam are making some progress in areas that give me real concern. That's why I look at a place like Syria right now and what's going on in that country. We cannot allow vast areas to be exploited by al-Qaeda and these extremist forces, because it will be to our peril.
Well, I certainly agree with you on that, and in our classified or closed hearing next week, I'm going to be asking you about Syria and also the Iranian threat, but I don't think those are appropriate in open session. Just two final questions. One has to do with priorities that you would set as director if you are confirmed. In recent years, paramilitary operations obviously have consumed a lot of resources, expertise, time, energy, and effort at the CIA. Do you believe this has been at the expense of traditional CIA responsibilities, collection, analysis, all sorts?
Well, certainly there have been opportunity costs because of the dedication of those resources. What I would need to do is, if I were to go to CIA, is to inventory exactly how our resources are being dedicated against the wide variety of strategic priorities to protect our country. In terms of operational collection activities worldwide, in terms of the all-source analysis being done, what are we doing in some of these other areas? Cyber, weapons proliferation, political turbulence. There's so many different areas. Counterterrorism is an important one. There's also an intersection between counterterrorism and a lot of these other areas, counterproliferation, international organized crime, other things. So we really want to optimize those resources so that we can, in fact, leverage the capabilities we have to deal with these very challenging issues across a very large globe.
Mr. Brennan, you've devoted a great deal of your life to public service, for which I thank you. And you obviously understand the world of intelligence in a way that few people do. You've been an intelligence professional for much of your professional life. In the last 4 years, you've held a political position at the White House. And I have been talking to people at the CIA whom I respect, and one intelligence official told me that a key question for the men and women of the CIA is, which John Brennan are they going to get? Are they going to get John Brennan, who's been the right-hand advisor of President Obama in a political White House? And by the nature of the position, I don't say that critically, that's the position. Or are they going to get John Brennan, who was a career CIA officer who worked his way up the ranks? And the concern is that they want to hear that you're going to be the CIA's representative to the White House, not the White House's representative to the CIA. And I just want to give you the opportunity today to respond to that concern. I would note that I also heard very good comments from people with whom I talked, but I think it's important when someone's coming from a political role to make clear that you're going to be the leader of the agency and not the White House's agent within the agency.
Thank you, Senator. I think if I were to be fortunate, privileged, and honored to go out to CIA, the CIA would get a John Brennan who is neither a Democrat nor a Republican, nor has ever been. A John Brennan who has a deep appreciation and respect for the intelligence profession, one who has been fortunate to have lived it for 25 years. A John Brennan who has had the great fortune to be in the White House for the past 4 years, watching and understanding how intelligence is used in support of our national security. The CIA would get a John Brennan who has been working national security issues for my life. It would get a John Brennan who really understands that the value of intelligence, the importance of intelligence, is not to tell the president what he wants to hear, not to tell this committee what it wants to hear, but to tell the policymakers, the congressional overseers, what they need to hear, what the intelligence community, with all its great capability and expertise, has been able to uncover and understand about world events that fundamentally affect the lives of not just this generation of Americans, but of future generations of Americans. And so if I had the great privilege to lead the men and women of the CIA, it would be the biggest honor of my life. And I would understand just how important and weighty that would be. And if I ever dishonored that responsibility, I couldn't look myself in the mirror. I couldn't look my parents, my family in the mirror. I couldn't look you in the face. And it's something that is very important to me. So I guess the proof will be in the pudding, the tasting of the pudding. And if I do have that opportunity, it would be my intention to make sure I did everything possible to live up to the trust, confidence that this Congress, this Senate, and this President might place in me.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, John, I would like to associate myself with what Senator Rockefeller said. I sat through a number of these hearings. I don't think I've ever heard anyone more forthright or more honest or more direct. He really didn't hedge. You said what you thought, and I want you to know that that's very much appreciated. And I actually think you're going to be a fine and strong leader for the CIA. And, you know, I can't help but say I'm really fully supportive of this, and will do everything I possibly can to see that our committee works with you closely and honestly. We will have a classified hearing. I am specifically going to just warn you that I would like to talk or have you respond in detail to what I perceive as a difficult, evolving situation in North Africa, now with Tunisia, with Libya, with all these countries, and certainly with Mali, and what you plan to, how you plan to direct the agency to deal with this evolving momentum that's taking place in Northern Africa. So that will be for Tuesday. And at the request of Senator Levin, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a joint statement that he and I made on April 27th, 2012. And secondly, in order to have Mr. Brennan's answers to questions for the record by the time he returns before us in closed session, I ask members to provide questions for the record by 5 p.m. tomorrow. That's Friday, February the 8th. So we have them for you as soon as possible so that you can respond to them Tuesday. I want to thank you and your family for being here, and I wish you well. Thank you, and the hearing is adjourned.
Thank you, Chairman.